Yep,
Hi, Kate. Thank you so much for joining me this podcast episode. Really appreciate it. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Evan?
Yeah, doing absolutely great. And thanks for coming to the show. Really appreciate it. And yeah, it's been a pleasure to having you on the show. And we're gonna have interesting topic to discuss, which is like how to have more flexibility on our planning, either could be business wise or could be personal life. So before we jump into that, I'd love to know more about yourself. How did you become an entrepreneur yourself?
Sure, sure. I was a an army guy way back in 2001. Really started in 1995, but 2001 to 2007, I was an officer. I had graduated West Point, and I did a little traveling around, and I became interested in the idea that after the after the army, there might be something more that I need to do.
Mm.
Because I was pretty sure that my wife was not gonna just follow me around the army for 20 years, right? I was pretty sure that wasn't gonna happen. So um, I started getting an interest in business, and I was lucky enough that after 2007, when I left, I had an opportunity to do some business right off the bat. I was able to start my own business and do some property management. And then Lehman Brothers came, or collapsed, I should say,
Yeah.
and that was a huge recession, and so that opportunity sort of went away. But I was lucky enough to find a job where I could actually revamp an entire company, not all by myself, obviously, but put my ideas into action, a little bit from the military and a little bit from my business experience that I had. And then later, I went to a group that was up at West Point teaching leadership, and they're a great organization. And we taught a lot of corporate America how to implement a lot of the Army stuff into their
Mm.
regular daily basis operations. And so after seeing all of that and seeing how the Army concepts and things could really augment the things I learned in business, that I decided I have to show people how to do this. So that was how I got into that's how I got into Power and creating Power, and now I just help CEOs see it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been a great journey. Like, how do you find like a difference between like being in the military and coming to like a business world? Like everyone says, like a business is a war zone as well. So do you find that kind of difference?
Yeah, I think there's two big differences. One, you realize that in the military, a lot of things are taken care of for you,
Yeah.
because there's the concept of firing is limited, right? You don't get taken out of the military for little things.
Mm.
It takes a lot especially when they've invested so much money in you to be an officer or all kinds of schooling and things like that. When they've done that, they don't want to fire you, but they will, like transport you from one place to another. So like I could be a captain in the military and I could be in charge of 420 soldiers in South Korea, like I was,
Yeah.
or I could be a captain in the army and I can be handing out basketballs at the recreation center, depending on how much responsibility I can actually take. Right. So there's a discrepancy there. I mean, we're more or less being paid the same, but it's the level of responsibility and the level of trust that you have from your leaders is vastly different in those two circumstances, I would assume, right? So so one thing is that like we can't get fired. The other thing is there's in the military they have a list of values
Right.
and a culture that is based on those values. And they're, you'll get arguing competitive analyses of like whether or not that works or whatever. But for me, it was a fantastic sort of like augmentation to what I had already believed.
Mm.
So it fit me, right? And the culture of leadership there, just taking on responsibility, being in charge, whenever the case is, like they would say, when in charge, take charge, right? So
Yeah.
like even if you're not in like really responsible, no one told you you're responsible, but you're the highest ranking guy, guess what? You're in charge. So there's there's a culture of that, and it kind of corresponds to the entrepreneurship idea if you think about it, because you know when you're, let's say, a startup, right? You have to come. Everyone is like pushing and like kind of pulling their weight, and if they're not, the startup doesn't go anywhere,
Yeah.
you know. But if you're and then as you expand, you have to start to branch out, and you have to start to like take leadership of a team of some kind, and then you have to kind of work together in order to make that business really scale. So leadership in every aspect has to happen, and I really appreciate that the Army gave me that sense of leadership and culture, and just cultivated it in me, because I really don't believe that anyone's a natural born leader, because it's really a set of skills. And you can say you were a natural born leader, but you learn that stuff somewhere.
Yeah.
So
You have
go.
to, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. Like a lot of things involved in like businesses and business world. And what we're going to talk about today, which is like more interesting, like how to be flexible on our planning. So a lot of people gonna do lots of planning for New Year is around the corner. It's just 1 month to go after the holidays, and we have a lot of plans for our business, probably personal life.
Yeah.
A lot of things gonna go as we expected, like we experienced in 2020 during the COVID. Like a lot of people think about the year going to be great, and a lot
Yeah.
of businesses have to be out of business. A lot of family lost their families,
Yeah.
members, and a lot of people gone in a like unknown moment, like when you're gonna go back to normal and things gonna be fall into places. So like we came up with the idea of like let's talk about today in the podcast like how to be more flexible with the planning. So can you actually explain a little bit like how we can be a little flexible on the planning or like what we do?
Yeah, sure. I mean, COVID was a great example. Everyone had plans, and then you know, God kind of stepped in and said, "No, you're
Yeah.
going to do this." And it was a learning experience for a lot of people. Maybe you had too many eggs in one basket, and you had to, quit that, or change that job.
Mm.
Um, for some people, it was liberating. They could work from home now, so they, like, a lot of people moved out of New York, where I live, and ran to Pennsylvania or to Florida or to other places that were less expensive standard of living, but they
Yeah.
could still use the same kind of pay that they have. So in some cases, it worked out better for some folks, and in other cases, but this is part of the whole idea of like flexibility and planning, right? Because they would say that in the Army, they would say that the plan itself is really nothing, but the planning that goes into the plan, that is the most important thing. Because as soon as you make a plan, doesn't matter what it is, as soon as you make a plan and then you start to execute the plan, it it, it doesn't go, nothing goes to plan.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically the reason why they say the plan itself is really nothing. So but the planning that goes behind it, everyone has there's two parts to that. One is everybody has their say, right? There's a lot of input that goes into making a good plan, right? You get the people who are doing the logistics, you get the people who are doing the intel, you get the people who are doing the operations, you get everything, and you put them all together, and they tell you like what's available, what we can do, we can do right now, what we could do in the future if we had extra resources, all that kind of stuff.
Mm.
And when they when they do that, they're basically telling you like, okay, here's the goal, here's all the stuff that we can use right now to get to that goal. And it's, again, kind of like in an entrepreneur standpoint or a business standpoint, you're always trying to take this idea, this goal, whatever it is,
Yeah.
and you're trying to get to it, right? And so you backwards plan from whatever you're trying to get to, and you build these steps, like you build all these little pieces into it so that you can eventually get there, right? And so that's the plan, right? Ultimately, that's the plan. You have all these resources, all these people coming to you and telling you like, this is what you're going to do, and then some leader has to say, okay, all that stuff is great, here's what we're going to do, right? So in the Army, we do 3 courses of action,
Yeah.
and the commander comes and he says, we're going to combine a couple of those courses of action, and we're going to do this. So the second part of all of that planning that I think is amazing is that once the commander does make that decision, everybody says, I had my say, and
Mm,
now I'm going to buy into the plan, right? We're all going to push in the same direction. And that is like a huge thing. Like, when people look at businesses, if the top doesn't come, if the idea doesn't come top down and have support top down, almost always it never happens because we do what we pay attention to, right? So if the guy at the top or the girl at the top says they want this to happen,
yeah.
everybody kind of like jumps over themselves and tries to make that happen, you know? So if as long as the people are crystal clear from the top about what they're going to support, and then they put resources to it, they put training to it, they put, all that stuff, guess what? That stuff will probably happen. But if you say I'm dedicated to training my people, and then a training opportunity comes around and they say, "Oh, we just don't have it in the budget." Well, then you're not really dedicated to training,
Mm,
right? So this is a this is a constant problem in business where there's just too many chefs, and everyone has a great idea and everybody wants to get a good rating, and they start to put all these ideas together, and no one is filtering them. No one is trying to figure out which one. There was a business I was working with, and they were pretty big, and they had 5 or 6 different databases to do all the same things.
right.
And you're going, why do you have 5 different ones? Well,
Yeah.
we have 5 departments, and they came up with this idea. And I go, well, you need to combine them, like it doesn't, oh, but then that's going to it's going to cause everybody trouble. Yeah, we're like for 5 minutes, it's going to cause everybody trouble. But after that, they're going to be streamlined, and you're going to realize those benefits. And plus, you don't have to pay 5 different people
Mm,
for the same
same job.
item, the same setup.
Yeah.
So, all of that being said, you know, when you're looking at setting up your business, or even making decisions in your life, as long as the things that you're doing are sort of in line with your goals, and the planning helps you to make sure you set those goals, and then you have like a path to them, right? As long as they're in line with that, and then also with your values, right? Because I like to look at goals like the things the destinations you want to get to, but I think of the values as like the things you are willing to do to get there,
Yeah.
you know? So you put those two together, and you have a culture. Not only do you have a plan, but you have a culture that is willing to execute that plan. And it's both of them are really important to do.
Yeah. A lot of people got like a tunnel vision on their planning and they don't look around like what's happening. Like there could be like a bear opportunity in there on the right hand side, and could be like there is more growth they can look for. But they so focus on their plan for the year and they don't just look around anymore, and they don't take any opportunities, and they miss out a lot of things. And a lot of people think it's a good thing, like a tunnel vision and focus really important. At the same time, like you need to be a little bit flexible. So what do you like to say on that?
Yeah, the flexibility, I believe, is all can also be planned
Hmm.
to an extent, right? When we're on operation in the military, you plan in these these points. They're called decision points,
Okay.
and you let's say you're starting from point A, and then you're gonna like sort of reevaluate what's going on when you get to point B, and that's all the way on the way to C, E, D, D, F, like all the way all the way down to wherever Z is, right? That's the destination, right? So along the way, and for businesses, this could be like an every 3 month review, or a monthly review, or depending on what their thing is. But you're not just focused on on the idea of did we get our plan done? You're focused on like the conditions around the plan, right? So like you start here and you say by point B we're supposed to have 100. You start an app, right? And you
Yeah.
say by point B we're supposed to have 50 members, right? Okay, well, maybe you only have 25 members at point B,
Mm.
but maybe you have 100 members at point B, right? You don't know. And and when you're uh regardless of what it is, regardless of where you've gotten to, you set that number of how many users you have so that you can do other things,
Yeah.
right? It's not just about how many users you have and the exact revenue that you might be bringing in, but what can you do with it, right? And there's other things that you're doing simultaneously, right? Like maybe you're doing a marketing campaign, or maybe you're doing, some other stuff. There's what you have to do is reevaluate at point B where you are and why, and then sort of have this evaluation of where you are and the conditions that you're in, and what other resources do you now have.
Mm.
What kind of momentum have you been bringing to your business? What kind of revenue is coming in? What kind of new ideas did you come up with that maybe now you can execute? And what kind of, maybe somebody's making an offer to you like, hey, this sounds like a great idea. You only have
Yeah.
25 members, so we'll give you this much money for it. But and you have to maybe weigh whether that's worth selling at that point, right? So there's lots of things that you can, like, you sort of go through the planning process again,
Yeah.
right? It's not just, let's see if we're on plan, because that's great, but what other opportunities are there? You just look at the wider picture, and you're going to be like, you kind of go through the whole planning process really, but really quickly, and say, this is what we're going to do. Plus, as you're planning, you might say, if we have 25 members, we're going to do this, and if we have 50 members, we're going to do this, and if we have 100 members, we're going to do this. And it doesn't matter if you got to point B yet, right? If you got to point B and like, before you get there, you've got 100 members, then you say, let's skip B and go to C, right?
Yeah.
Let's skip it. All that stuff that we were going to do at B, let's not worry about it. Let's go straight to C, because now, we have these opportunities that we didn't have before. We can execute these things that we couldn't have done if we just stopped at B.
Yeah.
So that's where the flexibility comes in. It's not just, it's the planning, right? For two things, right? You can either get there and see that you're not quite where you want to be, or you can get close to there and see what, but you're looking at the conditions. You're not looking at just the plan, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So like I have like another question, which is like totally related to the second question you just
Okay.
answered. Like a lot of times we don't execute what we plan for, and things don't pan out. Like a lot of things are out of control. Like let's say in a business, probably your coaching business, you expected to have like 4 clients by end of the month, and you didn't hit the goal, or probably your revenue goal was 2022, like you make a 250,000 a year, but you probably made 150,000 probably. So that was the case, and a lot of people get demotivated, like the kind of plan they had didn't get executed. Like how will they pan out? So what would be like your mindset in terms of that? Like how do you take on?
Yeah. So, um, yeah, I think it's interesting you use the word control, and I believe that there's almost no such thing. The
Yeah.
only thing we have control of is ourselves, right? That's the only, and our maybe our reactions to
Mm.
things, but everything else is sort of flying all over the place around us. And the uh, a plan, a good plan, one that you've done some work on, will kind of help you, like, just kind of navigate through that. It's literally utter chaos, right? But
Yeah.
your plan is helping you navigate through those things. And so when you have your goals and your values aligned, a lot of those decisions that you put in your plan, a lot of those decisions block out the noise. Like, if you have a clear vision of where you're going, and you have your values set in there, like, what you want and what you're willing to do to get there, those two things, if you put them together, a lot of the decisions that are weighing you down, and this little thing that's taking your attention over here, and this little thing that's taking your
Mm.
attention over there, you kind of just ignore it, and you focus on your goal. Like, every plan, as soon as it starts, you're going to hit obstacles, you're going to hit things, and it's your job to go around them, over them, under them, through them.
Yeah.
And if you have your goals and your values aligned, a lot of times those decisions to go left, go right, go through, go over, whatever, are kind of easy, and people, um, when they're in the situation, when they're in the chaos, a lot of times they go, how is that even possible? How is that, like, I can't even see what I'm going to do tomorrow.
Yeah.
But once you do a little bit of planning, and you sort of align those goals and values, now you change the way you see things. You just change it. It just completely changes your focus. And so um you're talking about how to navigate and take control over those things. And again, I think there is no control, but when you're able to focus more distinctly, more directly, there's a change in your behavior. Even
Mm.
just writing down your goal and your values, even just writing them down, changes what you're paying attention to, right? It's the same thing that we mentioned before. If the guy at the top of the organization turns around and says, we're going to do this, well, everybody's focus just changed, right? But as long as he or she doesn't give that direction,
Yeah.
right? They don't give a clear direction. They don't offer something that is attainable, and something that everybody thinks that's the good direction to go to. Then it's just chaos. Everyone's going their own way. And so it's sort of like, as a leader, you're always kind of like herding cats, right? You're always kind of like, everyone wants to go and do their own thing, but it's your vision. The vision that you have has to be explained over and over and over again. It has to be repeated.
Yeah.
And that's another funny thing. When you make a plan, a lot of people, they don't even look at it. They sit there, they plan, they do it, but they never bring it up again. They do it one time. Like, I've seen so many people just do a strategic plan and say, we're going to do this. And then they go, yeah, we're going to do this. And they all go together. And then they leave that meeting and you never hear about it again until next year.
Mm.
So it's kind of funny. So if you're not taking that plan and using it at every meeting and reviewing it on a regular basis, then guess what? It's never going to get done.
Yeah.
It's just not. There's just no way. There's just no way.
So true.
So this is the important thing about planning, right? The plan itself is not that much. Executing that plan, even a few people who are really dedicated to the plan, right, could potentially do a great job on a poor plan,
Yeah.
right? But the greatest plan in the world, if nobody's using it, then
Yeah.
it's
What's the point
useless,
of it?
completely useless. What's the point? So
Yeah.
why even go through it? And I think that's why people, when they come to a coach or to a consultant, or they go on a retreat or something like that, they all go, oh man, it's not like it's groundbreaking for them. Usually they kind of know what they're supposed to do, but then they forget. They're
Yeah.
like, they get involved, they get, the chaos overwhelms them, and the customers that need things tomorrow, it just overwhelms them, the urgent stuff. And it has to be someone's job in every team to sort through the nonsense and say, that's not important right now, do this, right?
Mm.
And everyone needs to do that for themselves too. But when you're the leader of the team, like, that's what they look to you for. That's what they look to you for. It's not just it's not just your job. People say it's a leader's job to know everything about their team, and be able to anticipate the problems that they're going to have and stuff like that. Yeah, that's true. But you don't know what's in someone's mind all the time.
Yeah.
Like, no one does, right? So yes, if you're communicating with your team on a regular basis and they trust you and they tell you things, you built that culture where you have that relationship with them, then I totally agree. I think you're going to find out stuff that you wouldn't normally find out. You might find out, like, they feel sick today, and that's why they haven't, they showed up late to their meeting. Or
Mm.
you might find out that they have 3 kids, and one of them is in the hospital right now, and that's why they're distracted, you know. But a lot of times, you're also going to find out who's going to be able to work through that, and who has, like, severe anxiety over stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a silly story. I was leaving for vacation one year, and I was going from the U.S. to Europe. and my passport had still not arrived. It was 3 days. It was 3 days before I had to go. And I
Right.
walked into my boss, and I walked into my boss's office, and I said, you know, I'm a little concerned. And he says, what's that? So I'm leaving in 3 days, and my passport hasn't arrived yet. I think I need to go figure that out. And I said, I'm kind of worried. And he says, and he looks at me, and he goes, this is you worried? Like this is like you're just walking into my office casually telling me that this is like this is happening. He says, if I were you, I'd be freaking out right now. And I was like, yeah, a little bit. And he goes, okay, well, if this is you freaking out, I think you just need to go handle it and come back tomorrow.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and everyone's different.
Yeah.
Everyone's different. They handle things differently. If if you give something to you something goes wrong, sometimes people are completely frazzled and they don't know what
Mhm.
to do, and they just don't know what to do next. That's where maybe they have that relationship with their leader and say, I'm overwhelmed, something's going wrong, what can I do here, and then they can have a quick chat about what to prioritize. But that is kind of like leadership is kind of the solution to your question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Keith.
Yep.
So it's been a great pleasure having you on the show, and it's been a great conversation. So we're coming to the end of this podcast. So those who's listening, if anyone learn more about yourself or find about your business, where's the best place to reach out?
Thank you, Raza. I really appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it's easy. It's easy to find me. Um, my website is just powerties.us. And a lot of times, if you just type in Keith Tully and um, Power Ties, it'll just bring you to whatever I'm doing. I've got a podcast going. I've got some books out there. All kinds of things. So I think it's pretty easy to find me.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, thanks for your sharing those. And yeah, I wish you best of luck with your business and your career. And I hope you have a wonderful day ahead. And yeah, thanks for coming today.
Thank you for your time today, Razzle. I really appreciate being on.
Yeah, the pleasure was mine. So that's a
Take
wrap,
care.
guys. Thank you so much for listening to the podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it. And if anyone want to reach out, go visit his website, Kate. And yeah, until then, I'll talk to you in the next episode. Take care.